Hey there, this is Dennis Anyone with Dennis Hensley. It's a podcast about making things up and making things happen. I love talking to creative people, and today my guest is a filmmaker, Luke Willis. He's the director of the documentary Ladylike, which is the story of Lady Camden, who was a Drag Race contestant, first runner-up in season 14, and his whole journey. And it's wonderful, and it's interesting, and I related to a lot of it. Both Lady Camden and Luke are dancers. Serious ballet dancers, so I love talking to them about dance, and we got all into it. And as you can see, I've still got a bit of a voice problem, so thanks for bearing with that. But before we get to the interview, I want to remind you that there are a couple ways you could support this podcast if you enjoy it. You could go to DennisAnyone.net and leave a tip in my virtual tip jar. Help me pay my bills. I want to give a shout out to Julie M. for the generous donation a couple weeks ago. I really appreciate it. And the other thing you could do is consider becoming a subscriber to DNR Studios. I'm part of a group of shows, the Derek and Romaine podcast family. And for a monthly fee, you get my show early, and you get all these other great shows. So check that out at dnrstudios.com. All right, here's the interview with Luke Willis. All right, joining me from San Francisco, it's Luke Willis. He's the director as well as the co-producer and the co-writer of the new documentary Ladylike, which is about Lady Camden, who you may know and love from RuPaul's Drag Race. So welcome to the podcast, Luke.
Hi, Dennis. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
I really enjoyed your documentary because there's so much dance in it. I have a dance background, and I used to dance on cruise ships back in the day, but I've been taking class for like the last 10 years. Not to make it all about myself, but I have a dance agent now, Luke, like because they need old dancers to be in like Wegovy commercials or whatever. So
no kidding.
Yeah.
Wait, you have to tell me who your dance agent is. That's amazing.
Well, I just don't want to drop names, but Block, perhaps you've heard of them, one of the biggest in the biz. Mandy Moore.
Yeah. She's been around.
Yeah, she's repped by them. I was at the holiday party for Block. You know, I haven't booked a single gig yet, but it's new. Anyway, but I'm like stalking all the young dancers that I've seen dancing with Sabrina Carpenter and stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys are amazing. So it's surreal. But anyway, suffice it to say, I love dance, and there's a lot of dance in your movie. So let's talk about how you first became acquainted with Rex, a.k.a. Lady Camden. How did you guys first meet? Because it was long before Drag Race.
It was. Yeah, I actually got to know Rex before he was. Well, I didn't really know Rex. I knew we had met a couple times before he created Lady Camden and started doing drag. And we met through the dance community in San Francisco. I was former San Francisco Ballet. He had just joined Smewin Ballet, Smewin Contemporary Dance, excuse me. It used to be Smewin Ballet, I believe.
Well, you see that in the movie, and I kept thinking, what does Smewin stand for? What is it? It's not Sacramento. Yeah, what is it?
No, it's Michael Smewin. So Michael Smewin was the director of the San Francisco Ballet in the 70s and the early 80s before Helgi Thomasson took over. And when he left the San Francisco Ballet, he started his own company. It was a smaller company of, I think it's fluctuated between 10 and 20 dancers. I think it's currently like 20 dancers right now. They have a pretty awesome roster of dancers right now. And that's how Rex and I got to know each other originally. And we didn't know each other that well. And I was invited to a show. I mean, there's a really long-winded story here about this like science fair that wanted to do a drag show. And I met this woman who was planning the science fair on an airplane and hooked her up with a friend. And the friend brought in a bunch of drag queens. And when I went to go to this show, I was watching this drag show at a science fair. It's so random. And halfway through, this drag queen walked on the stage, and the whole room was just immediately floored. Like, that is different. That is so good, and so entertaining and wonderful, and like just incredible talent within the first second of walking on the stage. And I leaned over, I was like, "Who is that?" And they were like, "That's Lady Camden." And I was like, "Who's Lady Camden?" They were like, "It's Rex."
So you knew Rex from dance, but you didn't know that he did drag. So it was kind of a mind-blowing.
I had no idea because I had left San Francisco Ballet and I was spending most of my time in LA at the time, going to USC, transitioning into being a filmmaker. And at the same time, simultaneously, Rex was starting to explore drag. And I think from that moment on, I was like, we got to work together. We got to make stuff. Like I'm fully inspired by what you're doing. So let's make fun, campy queer stuff together. And then like 2 years later, Drag Race came along and elevated what we were doing.
I just want to go back a little bit. It sounded like you spoke to somebody on an airplane, which people always act like. I hate when people say, oh, I don't want to talk to anybody. Because, sometimes you're not in the mood. But I feel like people need to talk to each other in this world. So, but something good came out of talking to somebody on an airplane is the point I want to hammer home.
Oh, 1,000%. Wait, first of all, if someone is willing to talk to you on an airplane, like, you should talk to them.
Yes.
Because for so many reasons. First of all, that person might really need it. And just being nice to a random stranger, you don't know how much that can impact that person's life and their day. But also, like, all of the studies around longevity and health and fighting off chronic disease, they all point to human interaction, IRL.
Yes.
IRL, not this Zoom
all my
stuff.
Happiness podcasts, all my little research that I'm really into this whole area. It all says that you connect, but something really palpable and tangible came out of this conversation that you're talking about.
100%. I also wanted to add, it doesn't have to be positive interactions either. Like the science shows, you can be like engaging in like curmudgeon-y like insults at someone, and like the physical one-on-one interaction with another human, wildly healthy. I was not trying to engage with humans on this airplane. This was like an early flight at 9 a.m.
Right.
They had us on that plane. It might have been a 6 a.m. flight. They had us on the plane, on the tarmac for like 3 hours for a mechanical issue. It took them like 3 hours to finally deplane the plane to get us a new plane. And they deplaned us right at the bar in the terminal.
Okay.
There were 3 of us that we just beelined it for Bloody Marys. We were like, no. This day needs to be saved. And I think it was the 3 of us, or it was like 4 or 5 of us, that all really connected in that moment, grabbing bloodies on this massively delayed flight to New York.
And the next thing you know, there's a drag queen science fair extravaganza afoot.
And before you know it, you have a feature film about Lady Camden.
Well, your film follows Lady Camden during the unfolding of Drag Race. And so when did you, as somebody who had worked with her before, when did you learn that she was on it? When the rest of the world did? When the cast was announced?
No, I learned sooner.
Okay, fair enough.
I learned sooner.
Well, because I'm wondering, there's a lot of gambles that you take in this movie. Like, well, maybe they're not really gambles, but the idea of like, if she'd been eliminated in the first week, that's less of a movie. She made it to the end. So, and you go week by week. So there's a lot of sort of like unknowns, it feels like, in what you're deciding to embark on.
Yes, 100%. And I think that is the scariest thing about documentary filmmaking. That is why I don't consider myself a documentarian primarily. There is so much risk. In every documentary that you see, there are probably 100 documentaries that didn't get to the finish line because they started investigating this idea, they started filming, and then at the end of the day, they were like, I don't think there's a film there, right?
Right.
I think that's the scariest thing about documentary filmmaking. And so there was a lot of inner turmoil happening within myself the whole time during filming. I'm not going to divulge what I did and didn't know, because I don't think I'm allowed to.
Sure.
But I certainly knew. There's a funny story about like when I found out she was on Drag Race.
Right.
It was in the middle of the pandemic, and I hadn't heard from Rex in like 2 or 3 months. It was probably 3 months, and I was super obsessed with season 13, watching season 13, and that was like my pandemic hangout. Was like we would hang out in the backyard at distance and watch Drag Race on Friday nights,
right?
With like 5 friends, and I would always like lament that like my favorite drag queen, Lady Camden, seemed to have quit drag and moved back to Sacramento and didn't know what she was doing with her life. And then she calls me out of the blue after 3 months of not talking to her, and I'm like, okay, all right, this is my chance as a good friend to like make sure she understands how good she is and that she needs to
not give up. She can't give up.
Don't give up. Yeah. So she calls me and I'm like, yeah, I'm here for you. And she's like, well, I'm glad you're here for me because I have some news. I just got back from filming season 14 of RuPaul's Drag Race.
Well, I'm friendly with Willem. You know Willem from back in the day.
Yes.
He does this show that I do regularly called The Mismatch Game. And if you are friendly or acquainted with a drag queen that just falls off the face of the earth, it's kind of like I think they're doing Drag Race. Like you could kind of put it together. I'm a total idiot. Yeah.
No, I'm a complete idiot. Like
but you wouldn't know because there were other cities involved and you're not sure. But it was kind of like, oh, that makes sense now that I know because he wouldn't respond to my emails about Mismatch or whatever it was. It was like, oh, duh, of course.
Yes. I just think it's hilarious because like that's where my brain should have gone, but I was so deep in the pandemic of like my own not having work for 6 months that I was like,
right. Everyone was scrambling.
I was a pessimist. Yeah.
It used to be that like at different times in your life, one person in your circle would be hanging by a thread, or maybe sometimes it was you. Now we're all like, there's all threads. It's all threads. Literally everyone I know is hanging by a thread. So
I know.
I understand the impulse to say, okay, he's given up. I'm gonna give him a pep talk. What movie did you discover you were making along the way? Because I think that's what happens with documentaries. You think you're doing this, and then you're like, oh, I'm doing this.
Well, I think that one of the coolest things that I discovered that I was making along the way was that, you know, I entered into this thinking, oh, this is the trajectory of becoming famous. Every celebrity makes a doc after they're famous. It's like, you know, the standard, like, you know, add this to my ire. But no one has made a documentary starting from before they were famous. And because no one knows, but we knew we knew we had 6 months of knowing.
This person was going to be on television in a way that is
Yeah. And so I thought that's what I was capturing. And along the way, I started to realize, wow, this process of being catapulted into international fame, and drag is a very special kind of fame because it comes with a more traumatized audience.
That's interesting.
Than like a Nicole Kidman.
Right. Thank you for mentioning Nicole Kidman because I live and breathe Nicole Kidman. So
yeah, well, all things point back to Nicole.
Thank you. I agree.
Even Cate Blanchett, by the way, if you don't know that story.
No, what story did Nicole?
Okay, so we're really going Trump here. We're on a lot of branches. We're down a lot of branches.
It's okay. All bets are off. We're nearly into Trump point 2, so the rules don't matter. So wait, what's the Cate Blanchett Nicole thing?
Oh well, so. Cate Blanchett, do you know that she is the uncredited voice of the masked woman in Eyes Wide Shut?
Interesting. I just watched that about 2 or 3 weeks ago before the holidays for the first time since it came out. Yeah.
Such a great holiday movie, right?
Yeah. Nothing says Christmas. But Kidman is so good
like
at
a sex cult. Kidman's amazing. I mean, Tom is amazing in it. I think Kubrick's one of his best. It's such a wonderful film. Anyway, Nicole, they were looking for a voiceover for this woman. I forget the exact reason, but they needed someone to voice over, do the ADR, and Nicole was the one that was like, "Well, I know this actress in Australia. She's got a pretty great voice."
Wow.
Nicole Kidman brought in Cate Blanchett, and lo and behold, we now have Cate
Blanchett. Nicole Kidman supports other artists. She's an artist who supports other artists. I love Baby Girl. I can't get enough of it.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, it's so good. It's so smart. It's about so many things. I love the writing and the directing.
I'm so excited.
One of the big themes.
Wait, we were on that was a side branch. We were going down
You were talking about the movie you ended up making. The movie you ended up making.
And I want to say this because it's so special. I realized along the way that we were making a film about Rex's inner child.
Yeah.
We were making a film about Rex finally finding a path to confront these demons of his childhood and to give that child everything it needed, which is validation and worth and belonging and sanctuary and community, which is what he didn't have as a kid. And I think that was one of the greatest surprises, especially because the thing that made me want to tell this film was this shared experience of both of us finding our sanctuary in arts school.
Yeah.
Little queer kids growing up in places where it was really not okay to be queer. And the place we ran to find our belonging were these art schools. And lo and behold, these art schools gave us our professional lives and our careers and our whole purpose in life and our opportunity to then give to the next generations everything we didn't have.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And the way you depict it in the movie, in one way, is you actually have a young actor playing sort of young Rex. Talk about that device and how you found that actor.
Sure. Well, so I worked with my casting director that has done all of my short films, who's a fantastic casting director, especially tapped into like the queer community. And they were looking for this. They were looking for a boy in dance class in the Bay Area who looked like Rex with curly red hair,
right,
and his blue eyes, and it was sort of we were coming up on this dead end. But then we found Shiloh, and the casting director kept saying, "You got to check this kid out." I'm like, "Yeah, but he looks nothing like Rex. Like, he's not Rex." And I remember the casting director was like, no, meet with him. And I met with him, and I was like, oh, physically he doesn't look like Rex, but like he's Rex.
Yeah.
He moves like Rex. He thinks like Rex. He is what Rex and the life he's living is what Rex and myself wish we had been able to live when we were 13 years old.
Yeah.
Right? He is this like openly proud queer kid with such incredible familial support, like family support, friend support, communities and groups. And he happens to be a ballet student of one of my close friends. And so I was able to and actually he's also a ballet student of Ben, who is Lady Camden's creative assistant in
Nice.
the film. He's the bald guy with the beard and mustache, who is on her side for everything. Ben is one of Shiloh's ballet teachers.
That's really cool. Well, those moments where you use the young actor really sort of separate it from your average doc, and they're sort of evocative and beautiful. How did you talk to that actor about what he was doing? Because he's young. Like you're not kind of giving him all of the psychological backstory of how do you talk to him about what he's doing and what did he understand about it?
Yeah, well, part of the audition process, I worked with his mother and him on going to dark places and tested his ability to de-roll.
To de-roll?
To de-roll. It's a process of, I think we talk about it a lot in intimacy and sort of how to separate yourself from really potentially traumatic scenes, roles, characters.
Right.
To remind yourself that that's not you, it's a character you're playing.
Right. To be able to go there without it being too traumatizing.
To come back to who you are, back to who you are and your experiences at the end of it. And so we did some visualization exercises and some sort of tapping into dark places. And then we tested out his ability to de-roll from that.
Right.
How quickly can he come back from that? Can he go all the way in and can he actually come back? So I think before even engaging him in the project, I wanted to make sure that we weren't going to harm this kid. We weren't going to give him experiences that he's not having, and unintentionally create all the trauma that we've spent our entire adult lives trying to unravel.
Right. Because at one point he's running away from bullies. It's some of these moments.
Yeah, and we did do, and once I knew that we could de-roll him, I think we did a lot of check-ins throughout the day on that bullying day.
Yeah.
To make sure that like he was coming back out in between, but we did a lot of exercises off camera as well to kind of create that relationship, because obviously the kids playing the bullies are really sweet, wonderful humans. They're actors. They're like, they walk on set and they're like really professional and happy to meet everybody, to meet this kid. And so we had to bring them into that state. It was fun. It was fun. It was just, it was like playing. That's why we love this business, because we get to like embody these experiences and portray things that are cathartic and different.
A couple of weeks ago on the podcast, I had two guests who happen to be friends of mine, but both of them have created Instagram accounts using Barbie dolls. And both of them talked about how they were able to celebrate the things that they were meant to be ashamed of as a child. And I thought the older I got, the further away I would get away from the boy inside me. And I'm finding, no, we're all talking about it. We all still have that thing, right? I thought it would be further in the distance. It's not.
It's amazing. Isn't that interesting how, like, as I think the queer experience makes you want to run from that kid as far as possible, because that kid didn't get to be a kid, didn't get to be a normal kid, didn't get to, you watch your straight counterparts being celebrated for just going through regular puberty. It's like, yay, good for you. Isn't it fun? And you're over here with all of this, carrying all this shame, all this guilt, this burden of being so unwelcome, having all the wrong feelings. And you're robbed of childhood. And so of course you want to run as far away as possible. And I think that the only way, it's sort of one of those paradoxical, counterintuitive things. The only way to actually move on is to get closer to that kid and to give that kid everything that it really needed.
Yeah.
Once you're an adult, you can do that. That like, oh, life isn't as scary as you think it is at 13.
Right. But also, you sort of see things that happen in the culture, like marriage equality and strides that are being made.
Yeah.
But I don't think we ever really get over reckoning with the fact that we played an act for 20 years, 30 years. Like, we were pretending to be something we weren't full time.
Yeah. 100%.
On some level. Trying not to give away, trying not to run, watching the way that we held our books, which I think is so interesting, because dance boys, there's no hiding it. You walk in second position. Like, you can't fake it. You can't butch it up. There's no butching it up. And I saw an interview recently with Jonathan Bailey, everybody's favorite dreamboat. And he loved dancing, and he would go to class, and there was a moment of peer pressure around him where he realized, oh, this isn't cool. And he quit.
Yeah.
And it broke my heart. Did you what was it like for you to take dance as a boy, or when you first discovered it? I couldn't, because it wasn't in my town, but I don't think it would have been cool. Although I did choreograph my swing choir in high school, and we tore some shit up. But it was, I found an acceptable lane.
Yeah, I have a unique story where I didn't. I dabbled in dance classes when I was right before middle school, and it was a total secret. Like, I was in the Nutcracker one year, and it was a complete secret from anyone I knew.
Like you were in the CIA. You were in the Nutcracker. Yeah.
I know. And then even I ended up at a performing arts high school where I was in the acting program, but I was so ashamed of my queerness that, like, I refused to recognize my natural talent and ability as a dancer. Oh. I refused to be a dancer. I refused to go to dance classes.
If I'm good at this, it means X. The fact that I'm good at this means I'm even worse than I thought, in a way.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, in high school, I was spending the whole time going to church trying to pray the gay out of myself. Like, it was so messed up. It is so damaging. And when I went to college, I went to Boston University, the acting conservatory there. And that was the first time I saw, like, a real ballet company thriving with these incredibly strong, powerful men on stage doing something so incredible. And I was like, oh, wait, I shouldn't be so ashamed of this. Like, this is cool. And then I started taking open classes and I signed up for a dance minor. And like, next thing you know, I'm dropping out of college after my sophomore year, in the summer of my sophomore year, between sophomore and junior year, signing up for a ballet school in central Pennsylvania. And 2 years later, I'm a professional ballet dancer.
You got good fast.
I got good really fast. I mean, that's another story too. It has a lot to do with
how did you do that? You natural ability, or did you work like crazy?
Well, sure. I had natural ability. I was already an actor. I understood the stage element, the performing element, my body and my voice and everything, and all of that. And I ended up at the Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet, which is a very sort of famous school within the circles of the classical ballet world. This incredible teacher, Marcia Dale Weary, started this school, I think maybe 60 years ago now. She's no longer with us, but the school carries on this incredible legacy. I arrived at the age of 20, and she looked at me. I had perfect feet, wonderful hyperextension, was super flexible, great turnout, but like zero training. She was like, it sucks because, I mean, she would never say it sucks. She would never use those words. She was the most ladylike you would have ever met. She was such an incredible woman. Always very, very well spoken. And, but she was like, to her, I think it reminded her of her own story. Right. The reason she became a teacher is because Mr. B saw her when she moved to New York at 18 and said, honey, you would have been great, but you missed it. You got the wrong training.
Right. You're perfectly built for this, but it's too late.
Too late. And that's what she saw in me, was someone that was too late, could have had a great career, but was too late. So she took me under her wing personally, teaching me how to teach ballet. And like, I had so much beautiful one-on-one time with her, learning her whole philosophy and everything that informed this incredible syllabus that she created. And there's this, I think later on, I became familiar with something called explanation theory that I think we're just starting to understand, which is that when you have someone that is learning a new concept and you force them to teach that brand new concept to someone else, it sort of like exponentiates the process of learning for the person that has to explain and teach this brand new concept before they fully have taken it in.
Right. That makes sense in a way.
And I think she accidentally superpowered my training in a way that no one expected. And
was it too late?
It was really incredible.
Was it too late? It wasn't, because you ended up working and doing it.
I ended up at San Francisco Ballet. I mean, that is arguably the best company in the country to dance for as a dancer.
Yeah.
I was prouder to be at SFB than I would have been at ABT or New York.
Right.
Sorry, but it was such an incredible experience. It felt like I was on top of the world. It was so incredible. I mean, do I think that my career could have gone farther if I'd started younger? Of course it could have.
But you had a career, and it wasn't too late.
No, and I did incredible things. And because I had a world outside of ballet before I became a ballet dancer, I also was so not afraid of leaving the stage.
Right. It didn't feel like all your eggs were in that basket.
At all. And I left probably 10 years early.
Yeah.
But I was like happy. I was a little bit like, thank you for this incredible decade of, it was more than a decade of like just completely unexpected joy, pure joy, finding myself on the stage as a ballet dancer.
When you took the turn and started pursuing dance, were your family and everybody on board with that? Were the people in your life like, what are you doing?
I think that my family was so proud of the kid that ventured. My dad didn't go to college until he was 40. My mom did go to college right away. She actually finished early. I think on my dad's side, the family, I was just sort of like they were all just so excited that my at my pursuits and my success so young that like I was going to BU, I was on full scholarship. They were like, oh, like, who is this kid that we gave birth to? This is wild. And so they had such great hope for me. And I think that I remember when I called my parents and was like, I'm thinking about dropping out and pursuing this other thing. I think they were scared to death that I was giving up so much opportunity that I had worked so hard for. But they also knew that I am a passionate person and you can't really tell me no. I don't. Right. I mean, under certain circumstances, like tell me no and tell me I can't do something and I'll prove to you I can. Right. And I think that my parents trusted that they just kind of trusted that I was on my own journey. I don't think they were happy about me dropping out of college, but they wanted me to be happy more than they wanted their like success metrics to be met. I guess.
I think in terms of my own family, my dad wasn't that interested in what I was doing, but in terms of my mother, I think the creativity part of me was a bit like, where did this come from? Like she was a bit amazed by it, like baffled by it. So she tried to encourage me, but it was similar to your parents. Like, I guess I have this kind of kid. Okay, go. You know? I relate to that. What was the pinnacle of your dance career? What was the moment or a performance where you're like, okay, I did it. This is the experience that I'll take with me for the rest of my life.
Gosh, I honestly have so many great experiences. I mean, I really loved new ballets. Those were the best. When you got to spend a month or more working with a choreographer on something that's completely just being created, it's always the best, the most rewarding thing to me. I have several points along the way. I remember very clearly an incredible experience with my first ballet company. One of my first shows, getting thrown in like day of an hour before because someone was sick into this ballet that I was supposed to be understudying. And I got to partner with someone that I had that I looked up to like a goddess. I was like, I aspire to be as talented as this human. And I was her partner all of a sudden. And there's this moment in the ballet where we're just like walking back and forth. And I just remember looking into her eyes and being like, holy cow, this is me right now. Yeah. I'm on stage living my dream. And I definitely had that really clear. And I also had one of my last performances. I had a really specific moment like that at the very end of this incredible Wayne McGregor ballet. And I was dancing with another just phenomenally talented. She's now a principal in Dresden, just unreal beauty. And we did the last pas de deux of this awesome Wayne McGregor ballet. And there's this final thing where she drops into my arms really close to the ground right before I throw her up over my head and start spinning. And the curtain comes down as we're spinning and the music just sort of reverberates out. And there was this moment where it was my last time performing this ballet. It was one of my last few shows on the stage at the War Memorial. And she dropped into my arms and I had to pick her up, throw her over my head and start spinning. And I just looked at her and I said, I don't want to. Like, I don't want this to end. And I said that, I spoke that to her on stage and I could see her, both of us just pause.
Because you knew the performance was almost over. Like, this was going to end.
If I put her over my head and start spinning, that's it.
The curtain's going to come down.
My career, that's it.
Oh, my gosh.
It was really, So 2 bookends there.
Those are beautiful.
Lots more in between, too.
Beautiful stories. Rex talks in the documentary about, in terms of his ballet career, that he didn't feel confident about lifts and lifting the partners around. Was that something that you did feel more comfortable with?
Yeah, I loved it.
Good for you. And I didn't do a lot of it, but I fucking dreaded it. There was a cat's lift on the cruise ship that I couldn't do.
Yeah, I loved it, but I'm also like a 6 foot tall person with broad shoulders. Yeah. Like my body, I have a different musculature than Rex and a different natural ability than Rex. And I'm a different size. Yeah. Like Rex is several inches shorter than me. And that really does make a big difference in terms of my ability to just I also have like weirdly big hands, which like my grandmother was a pianist and she always loved that I have like an octave and a half spread. And she's like, he's going to be a genius pianist.
That's amazing, but it's probably helpful in terms of these lifts and things.
It's hugely helpful. I mean, you can wrap your hand around a waist and really control a girl with one hand very easily because of that.
There's a beautiful pas de deux in the movie with Rex and a male partner. It looks like it was shot at Versailles. Like, where were you guys? It was this beautiful, ornate, empty room. Beautiful. Where was that?
So it was choreographed by my dear, dear friend, Miles Thatcher, who is a phenomenally talented choreographer who currently dances at San Francisco Ballet, but choreographs around the world for all the major ballet companies. He did this pas de deux for us. And that big ballroom is actually here in San Francisco. It's right next door to the Opera House where I had my career. It's called the Green Room. And it is part of the Herbst Pavilion, which is this, like, it's part of like right at San Francisco City Hall. Across the street is the War Memorial Opera House where the opera and the ballet perform, and then the Symphony Hall, and then this Herbst Theater where we have like Cal performances, these like smaller type of guest performances and music acts coming through. And that's the ballroom is sort of like the antechamber of that theater. And we were the first. It had undergone a massive renovation right before COVID and then shut down, and no one got to use it, renovated. And we were the first people in to use it after the renovation.
Were they cool with you using it? Was it hard to get them to say yes?
No, it was really easy. You submit the application, get the permits and stuff. I mean, it helps that like I knew everybody there. It's everyone that runs that building are the same. It's a lot of crossover with the people that run the Opera House, and everyone remembered me. Everyone knows Lady Camden in San Francisco, and everyone knows Smuin and contemporary dance in San Francisco. So the artist community in San Francisco is so robust. It's tiny but mighty, and we all love celebrating each other and collaborating with each other.
Yeah,
and making great art happen.
One of the most moving parts about the movie for me was what Lady Camden's breakout success in terms of being on television and drag meant to the people that knew her when she was doing small clubs for 4 people. Like that journey and what it meant to them to see her do that. I found that very moving because I think, we've all done those shitty gigs where we're like, what are we doing? Nobody cares. Why am I even doing this? And to know that there's people along the way that believed in you. I don't know. I love that part at the end when it comes back around.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, I think that there was an interesting theme, which is that I don't think Rex's goal was ever to be this like top tier Ru girl, runner up of a drag race season. I think that was just about like, dancers are perfectionists. We literally have mastered mastery. We understand what it is to go in and do the mundane work every day over and over and over again. And we understand the tortoise and the hare allegory so well, the fable so well, because we know that it's a lot of small work day after day that gets you to the big success. And we just practice that innately. We all start with pliés every single day, no matter what level you are. Right. And I think that Rex didn't go in thinking I'm going to be the best drag queen ever. Rex went in thinking I need to make friends. I am lonely. I am in need of community, and this thing lights me up. And I love the people I meet when I do this thing. And so I think for Rex, it was a little bit more of a surprise that he became the runner-up of season 14. And I think for everyone around him, it was the opposite. Everyone around him saw him do drag from the first moment were like, that's different. That's exceptional. That's really, really good. Like,
what was it about his drag that jumped out at you? The physicality, the makeup, the persona. Like, what was it that?
Oh, it definitely wasn't the makeup. Let me tell you, when I first saw Lady Camden, it was not the makeup. She'll tell you that.
Right.
And it wasn't the costume, and it wasn't the wig. I mean, she was not, she wasn't rich. She wasn't investing in, drag race level stuff before drag race. It was that she was there. She was such a talented performer before she became Lady Camden, and she brought all of those expertise, all of that understanding of like, how to create something dynamic and fantastic. I mean, yeah, she could dance, but she could also act, and she could like be present on stage in a way that takes decades to achieve. And
Right.
she'd already put in the decades Rex had already put in the decades to know how to stand on stage and be present. And that just was so apparent. And I think that it is the ballet mentality that like, when you get off stage and you had a great time, that's not where it ends. You're like, okay, cool. That was great. I feel like I got better at this. This show went better in this way. How can I fix this for the next show? Right. And that's how ballet dancers are always thinking.
Right.
We come off of our best performance ever, and we're like, cool. It's going to be, I'm going to go review the tape and figure out like what I still.
Right. My hand should have been here and it was here.
Yeah. And I think that Rex was just so clearly giving us 5,000% at all times from day one, right out of the jump.
Well, one of the things you learn about him watching the documentary is that he's a workhorse in terms of the preparation to do the finale. Like, it was a really interesting window into that preparation, and because they know what they have to do, and it costs money, and they've got their support crew around them. They're not sleeping. Like, I thought that was an interesting window if you're a Drag Race fan to know what these queens are going through back in their hometowns trying to get ready for this finale. He also has a personality. I think a lot of performers generally, and drag queens especially, are always sort of on in a way. Rex was able to just be real. And I think for you, it probably wouldn't have been as appealing if he wasn't that kind of person. Can you talk about that? And did you have to break down any kind of walls with him?
Yeah, I mean, that is 1,000% what made me want to make this movie. I wanted to make this film because I saw that there was this special quality to Rex that was different than what we see on reality TV competition series. Right. And that's a note. I want to be very clear. I bow down to worship at the temple of RuPaul. I cannot tell you when some of these young kids that have interviewed me will try to like get me to say something shady about RuPaul's Drag Race. So I'm like, kiddo, you don't know what the 90s were like. Right. What RuPaul has brought to the queer community is just unimaginable. I'm going to tear up talking about it. No, Thank you, RuPaul. Thank you, Michelle Visage, Randy, Finn.
All of it.
Thank you.
In about 2005, I had a talk show pilot with Logo. It didn't end up becoming a show, but I had done a pilot, and I was part of the roster and the big announcement. And the directive at that time was no drag. They didn't want drag. Drag at that time, they were seen as bad examples of gayness. They were not cool. Yes. And now because of Drag Race, because of RuPaul, they're like deities. One walks into the room and they're like, oh my God, it's ISIS. It's like somebody from another realm. The flip of that in terms of where they fit in the culture couldn't be more dramatic in 10 years,
It is. It's been it's just a little over a decade. I mean, it's nearly 2 decades, but since it's been on MTV in the mainstream, it is just not that big of a window of time. And it's incredible to see how much has shifted. So no shade to Drag Race. Right. I love it. I'm still there every Friday. But there's just something about the format of reality television competition shows that requires a certain amount of whatever. And when we were filming the short film, I Don't Need a Reason,
which is the one with the beautiful pas de deux. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that was one of the short films we dropped during her season. That was the first time I sat down and intimately talked with Rex about why he danced. Mm-hmm. And I think in that moment, I realized 2 things. One was, holy shit, we have the same story. We both found the arts as our sanctuary from a really hostile environment in the 90s. 2, well, he wasn't in the 90s. He's a little younger than I am. 2 was that, no, a reality show is not going to do this person justice or this story justice. This person has got something really beautiful intimately beautiful to share that a competition show is just not going to get out.
Right. It doesn't, and you can't boil it down to a quippy soundbite or whatever.
Right. You need an hour and a half to sit down and really hear this intimate processing of this experience, and the experience of like working toward healing your inner child and finding community and finding that place on the earth where you belong the most, and how scary that journey is, and how many just frightening moments there are. And I mean, I remember the sitting down. I was also frightened when I decided to drop out of college and become a ballet dancer. I was scared to death that I was giving up all of my opportunity in life. So I understand what it's like, how big of a risk it is to do something that actually satisfies your soul. And until you've done it, you don't realize how incredibly powerful it is to take that risk and to go find your little place, your little corner of the sky.
Yeah. To quote my audition song from Pippin.
She's a musical theater girl, always.
Now, when Rex was building up for the finale, were you feeling the pressure? Did it bleed over onto you guys? Were you a nervous wreck too?
God. Oh, 1,000%. I was a total mess. I also wasn't sleep. First of all, I was only there half the time, and I was wiped out. I was so wiped out. Granted, I had a 25-pound camera on my shoulder the whole time, but like she had a 25-pound costume and wig on the whole time. I mean, it's a lot that these girls really endure and go through to be a part of this machine. And I certainly also had the weight of, have I wasted 6 months of my life? Please win. And of course she didn't win. So, which I think was actually, for the film's sake, really one of the most fascinating.
I think it's more interesting.
The film took.
I think it's more interesting. And
I think it is, because then our story really becomes about the deeper quest. Right.
What are you doing it for?
It really, Yeah.
And Rex at one point says, I've been knocked down before, and you just get up again, and that's what it is. I was kind of knocked out when you showed the auditorium.
To reference the famous runway fall.
Yes, exactly. Which is genius, by the way. When you see the big performances that those drag queens are doing in England on that tour, I'm like, those auditoriums are huge. Like, the scale was surprising to me from your movie. Were you surprised by how big those crowds were?
I was blown away. I mean, I don't think I fully grasped when Rex was telling us and telling the camera what was happening. There was like a moment, that scene, the rehearsal scene for the big stadium tour.
Yeah.
Where we were filming all of that, and then we took a lunch break. Everybody broke, and Rex and I went down to this like empanada place down below, and we were sitting
on Third Street. That empanada place is really good. I know it. Yeah, it's by Third
so
Street.
Good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So I live like 2 blocks from there. I love this. I love the Third Street neighborhood. It's so great. Jones on Third.
So good. Yeah.
So good. We were sitting there at lunch, and we both had this moment where we looked at each other and were like, pinch me. This is really happening.
Well, wow. Rex talks about wanting to be Britney or Christina, but those stadium tours, that's what it felt like. Is it women in the audience? I know it's queer people, but who's filling those stadiums for these drag queens?
It's actually a lot of straight people and a lot of kids. You know who it is? It's the people that don't go to the gay bars, that don't have access to the gay bars, that aren't inundated with their local drag performer at the gay bar every Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
That's who it is. It's the people who so desperately need the catharsis and the, what is it that they bring? I mean, they bring such a fearlessness to us. They are superheroes.
Right.
They are superheroes, not just for the queer community. They are superheroes for anyone who has ever felt like a fish out of water.
Yeah.
They are the people that have struck out and have found like massive belonging and self-worth against all odds. And so they become these superheroes to so much more than the queer community. And in our little neighborhoods, a drag queen is like, a dime a dozen. But outside of that, it's not. They don't get to just walk around the corner on a Thursday night and watch a drag show at 6 p.m. while they have a hamburger. Like,
right.
That's not an option for them. So that's who I realized was filling these stadiums. Kids that are under 21 and straight people who don't necessarily, lots of women with their husbands and straight families who need this radical self-worth, belonging.
Right. And they probably feel safe there. They probably feel like they're okay and they're part of something.
Yeah, exactly.
Was World of Wonder and the RuPaul Enterprise, were they cool with you guys making this documentary? Because I know you featured clips, but I could also imagine that as the show was unfolding, what are they up to? Like, I can imagine that they like to control the Runiverse, if you will. Like, what was that dynamic like?
Well, it was really minimal. I don't have any official permission for anything from them. But that being said, I don't know what I should say or not say, but I do know they like it.
That's awesome. That's great. The show comes off as great.
From a creative standpoint, I think they like it.
Yeah.
They did not help. We sort of softly asked for their help. I think that I knew that I didn't want to tell a film that was Drag Race.
Right.
I wanted this. So I also didn't want it to be a wow production. I didn't want it to be, some branding opportunity. I wanted it to be about Lady Camden.
Right. You don't even say who the competition is in the finale. Like, you see parts of it, but I don't think you ever say the name of the person that won.
We don't. We very specifically don't say any other drag queen's name from that season, and they are there. I mean, you see Daya in like some of the Work the World footage. Daya's kind of on the like side.
Yeah.
I think Bosco pops up at one point. We all know who Willow is, and Willow is so wonderful and sweet. She came to our Chicago screening, and she and Camden are great friends. And I think the point is like, yes, Lady Camden's going through Drag Race, but this film's not about Drag Race.
Yeah, it's a broader journey than that.
Yeah.
I've actually been to Camden Market once when I was in my 20s in England, and I bought a leather jacket, and I still wear it. It fits like a glove. It's like a Danny Zuko leather jacket.
Do you know what store you got it at?
No, it was like some flea market thing. This would have been in the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I bet Rex was like just bopping around on the streets.
Yeah, probably as a kid.
Splits for chips. Splits for chips.
He would do splits and get tips on the street.
Not tips.
Chips. So he would say, I'll do the splits if you buy me some French fries.
Well, no, he would say it to he and his friend Maya would say it to the person selling the French fries.
I got it, to the vendor. Okay.
If I do a split for you, will you give me free chips?
Yeah.
They would do it. I mean, there's the flip side of that, which is like, they all knew that was the manager of the Electric Ballroom's son. Like,
right. They had a sense that they would be a receptive audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know who popped up in your credits that surprised me, but then kind of didn't surprise me? Or the Duplass brothers. Yeah. I'm a fan, particularly of Mark. I see him sometimes at Vidiots where I like to go to the movies. And I just like what he's about. Like, he's really open about a lot of his own struggles, and he really champions independent artists.
Well, so Mark and the Duplass brothers are big supporters of Seed and Spark. And I think I'm allowed to talk about this, but they were, they participated in our crowdfunding campaign at one of the highest tiers, and gave the amount to justify the credit that they got. And I think that they are incredible champions of independent voices. And it's apparent too, I think, in the work that they do, the roles they take. I think also, like, they're clearly wanting to like make an impact, and they're very purpose driven, I think, with their art and their impact on the community and storytelling community at large. And I think that's really awesome.
They do so many things on their own that they still have an eye beyond their own projects to help out.
Yeah.
That they even have the bandwidth for that was really cool. You thank fans for videos. So am I to understand that a lot of the club scenes and stuff were footage that you just found fans on Instagram posting and you were like, hey, can I use that? Is that what happened?
Pretty much anything that's vertical. You know, we get, there's like in those sections where she's bopping around from place to place all over the planet. You know, you'll see we've got the triptychs of the vertical. Everything. That's her. Those are fans. I mean, I couldn't keep up. I couldn't afford to keep up. We didn't have the budget to keep up. And I don't think I was still like, oh, is it worth it? I don't know if I should be there. Anytime it's like the classical 16:9 horizontal, that's most likely me or Matt, the other cinematographer on the project.
Right.
Anytime it's vertical, it's definitely shot by a fan. And, we are so grateful that they were excited to share their footage with us.
Well, it's a great marriage because their footage gets to live on and you get to have this footage. There's something cool about it. It's like, gosh, look at all those fan videos that they're able to use. And it's really well used and integrated. It doesn't jump out as like, wait, what's that? Like it feels organic. Yeah.
Well, I also think it provides this, I think it makes it feel so real. You know, we cut away to a couple fan videos too, right after her win, on the Freddie Mercury runway fall.
Right.
Because that footage is from clubs she wasn't at. And because there's something so, I don't know, like, it's just palpably like this is actually happening. Like this is like, there are actually people all over the world watching this at the same time simultaneously. And I think that gives it a different energy than if it was just like the 5 clubs I followed her to with a big professional camera and everybody's moving out of my way because they see I have like the big credentials or whatever. You know, you have like that raw vibe. I mean, there's one on Work the World where you turn to the girl who's sitting next to the guy with the camera and she's like, ah! You know, and I just think it's so, you can't capture that when you're the guy with like the big ass camera.
Yeah. It had like this community feel to it, like this broad community world feel to it.
Yes. And that's what that is too, right? Yeah. That's exactly what that is. It is. And she talks about like how different Work the World is because you're so far away. You're not in the club. So when you're watching the club stuff from the perspective of someone's phone, filming it for social media, it's like you're right there next to her. You're seeing people's arms reach out and stuff money down her, you know, costume. And then when you're at Work the World, you do feel that distance. You do feel that, oh my gosh, this is being professionally filmed. Now it's like she is 100 feet away from the closest audience member. Yeah. And that's leading to this sort of like incredible dopamine withdrawal she was having. And that was like sort of setting her, like putting her in a weird space.
Like she was honest about it. Like you would go to these huge stadium shows, but she didn't have that many friends on the road. She'd walk around Milan by herself. Like, she talked about, or Rex talked about that vibe. There's a shot you have in the movie, it goes by really fast, of this suitcase full of money that I assume are tips.
Yeah.
I'm at that age now where I want to know where everyone gets their money. Like, how do you do that? How do you afford to live like why are you at that show? Like, I want to know where everyone's financials. But just suitcases full of money, right?
Yeah, there's several check-ins on money that we do throughout the film that are really subtle. And we are trying to like represent a real shift in the money, element. And because we're Americans and to us, success is money. And
right.
I think that changed for her. I mean, she was broke and highly in debt when the first episode of Drag Race aired. And by the end of it, she was out of debt. She had this awesome 1-bedroom apartment right in the middle of the Castro. She was able to like take care of herself and invest in like retirement. And Rex, you know, like really, really created a nice like nest egg for himself through this process. And so you'll also notice the first time you see money in the film is right after the very first gig at Faces in Sacramento. And it's only like $5.
Right.
And it's these little crumpled bills laying on the hotel room floor.
Yeah.
And then the next time you see money, it's the 2 giant suitcases, and she's like moving a mound of cash from one suitcase to another.
Was that from the big stadium tour, or are these more?
No, that's from the clubs. That's from the club gigs.
Those are club gigs. Amazing.
Yeah, and the stadium tour, there's no real money, but
because people aren't tipping like that. Yeah,
right. But we show the the success of like having the big dressing room and the like hallway under the stage and the big tour bus and the like, kind of walking around not having to even think about money or anything.
Right. Just being part of this gigantic thing, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I recently went to a screening of The Greatest Showman's follow-up movie about Robbie Williams' Better Man. Michael Gracie. I don't know if you've seen it, but I think what you'll find interesting, there are 2 dance numbers in it. There are multiple, but there are 2 that I wanted to stand up and cheer in the theater. They are so electrifying. Anyway, in the Q&A, the director, Michael Gracie, said that on Greatest Showman, he would have the choreographer walk with his hand on the camera operator's back. And then he said for Better Man, the choreographer learned to operate camera. So on some of these dance numbers, the choreographer is literally operating the camera. From your point of view, making films, being a dancer, does that make sense, what they're going for there? And have you used that? Did you use that in terms of this movie?
1,000%. Whenever I'm working in the world of dance and I have a cinematographer or a camera op that's not me, I'm like chomping at the bit, trying to like not grab the camera out of their hand.
Wow, that's really interesting.
It is interesting. I mean, I think that.
Is it a rhythm thing? Is it a movement thing? Is it timing?
It's all of those things.
Right.
And it is when you are a dancer and you've been trained as a dancer and you've also choreographed the piece that you're filming, like you understand the rhythm and the timing and what's about to happen next in a way that's very different from a camera operator who is just seeing this for the first time, is trying to get the shot list executed. There is a difference there, but there's also a bit of a, when you spend thousands and thousands of hours staring at a mirror, adjusting the tilt of your head by a millimeter and reflecting on the change from just a millimeter of difference, every single finger, how to place every single finger so specifically while you're jumping in the air and spinning 2 times. When you are engaged in that level of detail of the movement that is occurring, you see things that someone who hasn't had that training doesn't see.
Yeah.
And you are able to anticipate and know what the most beautiful thing on that body is going to be in a way that no one can achieve without spending those thousands of hours in front of the mirror learning about the body the way dancers do.
Yeah.
And that's no shade on cinematographers because, there's just they're incredible visual artists, but it is such a refined art form in and of itself that to capture it without any training in it, I see it time and time again. I see some of the most talented cinematographers step up to film dance, and I am 90% of the time really disappointed by it.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
And that's because I come from it, knowing what we should be seeing, where it should be going, because I have stood in front of that mirror for 1,000 hours, 10,000 hours.
I'm very curious to see what you think of Better Man, because at least of the 2 numbers I'm thinking of, there was something
I'm sure it's fantastic.
The way it feels alive in a way that is so electrifying. Yeah. I loved it. Yeah. I'm going to wrap it up soon, but I just have a couple more thoughts. There's something very moving that Rex says at the end, and he's talking about what he would tell his younger self, and he talks about, you're going to be so free. He would tell yourself, the sense of freedom that Rex feels at the end is really palpable, not just in terms of freedom to be himself, but financial freedom, Like
Yeah.
freedom, like all of these things that he thought were the problem are actually the solution. Like the femininity, the grace, the movement, the girliness, all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you
It's
talk
one of the great
about,
paradoxes of life, right?
isn't it?
Yeah, I think we're all struggling to like learn that throughout our lifetimes.
Right.
But I don't think that lesson ever is fully learned. I think it's relearned
Yeah.
and deepened.
I also think it was so smart of you guys to think, oh, let's release videos as these episodes are dropping. Super smart, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like when he called me the day after getting back, like I was like, heck yeah, because it was actually, I was a little bit, so season 13 was the first time a queen really did that.
Interesting.
And it was Denali. And Denali dropped 2 videos during her season. And I was like, let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's just drop, like, why? Like take your photos, do your photo shoots, but like, let's create worlds. I mean, that is what Rex is doing. That's what I'm doing when we make videos together, where we are doing exactly what his drag is intended to do. We are freeing our inner child. We are allegorizing the world that we live in so that we can better understand it and have a roadmap on how to better move through it. So like, let's create these worlds. Let's create these like little inspirational, hopeful stories. Let's have some fun.
Yeah. And you pulled it off. That's the thing. Like, I know part of you'd be like, we should do that. And you're like, oh, that's a lot.
It was on Rap. We were having a little rap dinner, our crew of 5 people that made all those films. And the gaffer's like, Luke, I just love your energy. You're like, what? We have $5? Okay. Marvel.
Yeah. Crazy.
I was like, yeah, we built an ice cave.
Yeah.
We just built an ice cave for $100.
We built an ice cave. That might be the quote that is the headline of this episode. What have you learned from screenings? What have been the reactions at screenings? Like, has anything surprised you in terms of the themes that people are picking up on, or moving moments that you remember from screening it for people?
Well, it's such a fascinating thing to live with a project for 3 years in isolation. You know, I mean, not complete isolation. I have my collaborators, but it's like the 2 or 3 people in a room working on something. Like, is this right? Does this make sense to people? And you're bouncing it off a friend here and there. It is always surprising to share it for the first time. And I think what was wild is that we had been working in America. We had been making this film in America with an American sensibility. And the one test screening we did was with Americans in Los Angeles. And then we premiered it in London. And sense of humor is completely different. And it was kind of amazing to see things that like just made us like smile lightly. We're like hearty laughter, uproarious laughter. I was like, oh shoot, we should have given them more space to laugh there, I guess. Oops.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was a joke. I guess Londoners like that one. So I think that was really fun to see how the audiences in America and UK and elsewhere in Europe have responded differently to the film in terms of the moments of laughter. I think what's really phenomenal is you build a story like this too that's meant to be intimate and hopeful and inspirational and is meant to be a lot more raw. And you're not sure if it works until someone else responds to it.
Right. That's the thing about movies generally. Like one little, you move out one thing and then the whole thing works or it doesn't. Like
yes. 100%. I mean, the small little changes that have completely changed the trajectory of the film are really fascinating. So I think it's been really wonderful too to see that like, it's not just me and Rex who have had this experience of feeling so wrong and so left out and like we just don't belong and feeling the need to so desperately search for a place where we do belong. It's actually a very universally human experience that is resonating really broadly. And I really am super grateful that I can have played a part in putting a story out in the world that brings that kind of catharsis to people. I think it's super, It's such an honor.
I love it. And you grew up in the South, right? Where exactly?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, Florida.
Jacksonville, Florida. When you go back
baby.
there now, do you still have roots there? Do you go back?
Yeah, I went back for Thanksgiving and Christmas this year.
When I go to my hometown, there's more queer people than there ever was back in the day. Like, I felt like there was none. What's it like when you go back to Jacksonville?
There is a new gay bar in Jacksonville that I am obsessed with. And it's all windows. It's floor to ceiling windows all the way around this bar.
You mean it's not a shady door with a name like Alibis or Incognito where we have to act like where it's literally should just be called Shame?
Yes.
Yeah. Windows.
Yes. When I was growing up, the two gay bars were, I think it was In Cahoots and Beau's Coral Reef. And every time you drove
I love
by
In Cahoots. I love that
Reef,
they all had sneaky names. Like,
yeah. It's a little subtle, like the coral reef, like we're all hiding under the coral from the sharks. And that would be like it was like on the back side of a strip mall, had no windows, and I just remember how like, ooh, gay things happening there.
Right.
Those gay people. Yuck. Stay away from Beau's.
Yeah.
And now there's like this amazing bar. Floor to ceiling windows, young people everywhere. It's so vibrant, it's so fun. And I got the chance to take Lady Camden there the day after Christmas because the entire tour of the Drag Queen Christmas tour came through Jacksonville the day after Christmas.
Amazing.
They packed out this theater, the theater that I had my graduation ceremony in. I was like, if I brought my dad and my mom, it's like mind blowing. It was
two worlds
so
colliding.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I brought all the drag queens to the, it's called Hardwicks.
The Hardwicks is the glass gay bar with the windows?
Yeah.
There's no shame in that title. Hardwicks is just.
No, there's not.
There's maybe an erection, but that's good.
High Tops is next.
And yet we're entering this moment politically and culturally where they want to push us back. It's like so crazy. Anyway, Tell people how they can see your movie.
It's available streaming, cable, and satellite. Basically anywhere you can rent or purchase a film.
Like your iTunes, your Amazon, and all that stuff.
Yeah, go to Amazon. Amazon is best for us. You should go to Amazon.
Yes, do it.
It's also on Apple and Google Play. It's on Hoopla, Canopy. If you can't afford the rental and you have a library card, you can probably watch it on Canopy.
I love Canopy. Canopy is super gay, by the way.
For you.
Yeah.
Is it? I actually did know that. The libraries are so great. You can also buy the DVD on Amazon now if you want like a keepsake.
Yeah.
Relic from the past, like me. And all of this is like collaborated. If you go to ladylikthemovie.com, it's got links to all the places you can watch it. So if you forget, ladylikthemovie.com, there you go.
Love it. I've loved this conversation. I love the dance part of it and all of it. What do you think of the movie Centerstage?
Are you kidding? I'm obsessed. I just okay.
Because Lady Camden does the Centerstage unfurling, and I'm like, oh fuck, she's Josie.
Wait,
she's giving us Josie.
Her whole first talent show number, it's all Jodie Sawyer.
Yeah.
It's the Jamiroquai song that's at the end of it, and it's like her, they wouldn't let her wear the red dress, so she wore the black dress, but she has Jodie's hair, and she has the red point shoes, and she throws them as she starts to do the PKs. And we just did, the San Francisco Dance Film Festival just hosted the 20-year anniversary of Centerstage screening at the Hertz Theater, which is the green room.
Oh my God, in there. So, amazing.
In the theater next door, they hosted this big screening, and Lady Camden was the host of the evening, and Lady Camden and I got to sit next to Amanda, who plays Jodie Sawyer.
Amazing.
And it was so great. And at the moment when the director comes in, he goes, "You don't have great feet, and your turnout's not that good."
Yeah.
And he's saying that, and everyone in the theater, 1,000 people are quoting it. And I leaned over to Amanda. I was like, I don't know, they look pretty good to me.
I love it.
Thank you.
She was great. Zoe Saldana was in that movie.
Amanda was a San Francisco ballet dancer, to be clear. Yeah. She is the only San Francisco ballet dancer in the film, and she's the star.
That's right. And every time I go to my hip hop class, we always say dance the shit out of it. That's part of our
dance the shit out of it.
There's that thing of being a dancer that is a point of pride with me or a point of connection with people.
Yeah.
What is it? I don't know. I think it's that we do it with our bodies. There's something cool about that. Especially as a gay person where we thought our bodies were a problem. And we're like, our bodies can do this thing. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole self. It's not just your body. I mean, your mind and your heart are so intimately involved in the process too. And it's not like weightlifting. It's much more involved than that. And it is sort of like, you know, what I tell people is they come to the other side to join me in the retired ballet identity. I'm like, the thing that is so important to remember is that what you just did is going to always be the thing you identify with most for the rest of your life. And it will have occupied a small percentage of the entire life you're going to live.
But it's going to be a key part of your identity.
When you die on your deathbed, the last thing you will think is, I'm a dancer.
Yeah.
That's the last identity you will still hold on to. And it's this, and from a time perspective, it's the smallest amount of time you will have done anything in life.
But it had the biggest impact.
The biggest impact.
Wow. Here's my final question. It sounded like when you were embarking on this, you didn't quite know what you had. There were like fits and starts and like, what is this? What does it mean to you to have done it?
Wow. This is such a tough question because the ballet dancer in me has already moved into like self-critique mode and like what's next and how do I make the next better and take my lessons learned.
Yeah, the point your feet part of the exercise.
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard for me to like sit back and really be like, oh wow, I did something really cool.
You got it. You saw it through.
I saw it through. And you know, I set a timeline for myself. The day I retired from ballet, I had my very last show at the Châtelet Theater in Paris, and I flew home, had 1 week to pack up my apartment and move to LA before I started USC film school. And I gave myself, that was 2014, I gave myself 10 years to make a feature film. And I said, if you can't do this in 10 years and you wake up and you're 42 and this thing just isn't happening, you've got to pivot and figure out how to support yourself for the rest of your life. You've got to stop being a broke artist and grow up. The week that we finalized our agreement with the distributor, Freestyle, was that same week, exactly 10 years later.
Wow. Yeah. Congratulations. I relate to that story so much because there are so many times where I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? You know?
I know.
But there was something that I read online, and I'll share this with you and then we'll wrap it up. In the wake of the fires that are still unfolding, it's such a nightmare. There was somebody that posted, and I'm not even sure who it was, just kind of about LA. And they were like, it's a working class place with a lot of people that are working hard. And then they said something like this. They said, I'm going to take a drink of water before I garble this. Okay. They said all the creative black sheeps from their families came here to make stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's why all the people that I know are kind of in the same boat. We were all those people. Like, I don't know any venture capitalists. Do you?
I do, actually.
Good for you. Good. See if they're hiring. I'm not proud of it. Can they give me a job? I don't know. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Congratulations on the movie. People should check it out.
That's just from my like nonprofit arts days. They're a necessary component.
Right. No, they are necessary
arts.
For everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. All right.
Yeah, I love it. I love being a part of a funky community of artists who are like, we are here to make the world better, more beautiful, more worth living in.
Yeah.
You know, and it's such an incredible thing to be part of a community that is so much in service to that cause of making the world more worth living in for future generations.
I think it's a beautiful note to end on. Thank you for this conversation. I loved it. Congrats on the movie. And I hope our paths cross in person someday.
Yes, me too. Take care. Stay safe down there.
Thanks again to Luke Willis. Watch his documentary. It's streaming on all the platforms, your Amazons, your Apples. You will enjoy it. All right. So this happened. As you know, we've been dealing with the fires here in Los Angeles. I found out that one of my dear friends and my very first podcast guest on Dennis Anyone, Jackie Clark, her family lost their house. She and her husband and her 2 kids near Altadena and had to get the hell out of there. There's a GoFundMe for them. If you go to GoFundMe and search Jackie Clark with an E on the end, that might come up. She's also done the Mismatch Game a bunch of times. We were co-hosts on Radio with a Twist. She's the best. And they lost their home. So I know a lot of people are going through a lot at the moment. The only other thing I wanted to share with you is after I did the interview with Luke today, I was online and I saw that David Lynch, the filmmaker, had passed away. And there was all this outpouring of stuff. And I got very moved by reading the things. But there was a quote that somebody posted of his that really resonated with what Luke and I were talking about. This is the quote. "Inside we are ageless, and when we talk to ourselves, it's the same age of the person we were talking to when we were little. It's the body that is changing around that ageless center." That's something that David Lynch said, and I think it really resonates with people that I've had on the podcast talking about, the little gay boy inside them and wanting to honor that kid and give him joy and, all of those things. So I just thought that was an interesting quote. All right, that's enough for this week. Thank you so much for listening. I want to give a shout out to Oscar Rosario for mixing the episodes. My theme music is by Mark Daniels for Placement Music. We'll catch you next time on Dennis Anyone. Bye.